Welcome back to the second episode of my Iceland mini-series. Today I'll take you deep into the heart of the Highlands to photograph the surreal Melfell volcano, where the weather threw us into a dramatic sandstorm that transformed our shoot into an epic adventure. If you missed the first episode on photographing Iceland, I highly recommend checking it out. I'll put the link up here. Hi everyone, what's going on? One of the highlights of our Iceland workshop itinerary of this year was Melfell. It's an insanely beautiful area with surreal landscapes. Reaching Melfell is a journey in itself. It's accessible only during the brief Icelandic summer, and you have to navigate treacherous off-roads in storied 4x4 vehicles. When you're on a photo trip in Iceland, keeping an eye on the weather is absolutely essential. That day, the weather forecast for Melfell didn't look too promising, with low clouds and nearly zero visibility expected. I always remind people that weather in the Highlands can shift from calm to savage really quickly, turning into a very hostile environment. If you are unprepared, you could find yourself in serious trouble. Long story short, to ensure we had a productive day, we asked the group whether they preferred to skip Melfell and head south, where we had a good chance of capturing some shots at an easily accessible location along the south coast, or if they were up for an adventure with no guarantee of success, but the potential for a truly unique experience. This would involve driving into the Highlands to see how the weather was there, but it also meant a 3-hour round trip with the chance of not seeing the volcano at all. Well, the group voted for the second option. Exactly what I had hoped for. As we drove deeper into the Highlands, the anticipation in the air was palpable. After just 45 minutes, something incredible happened. We found ourselves right in the middle of a massive sandstorm. The sky turned dark, the wind roared, and sand and ash wiped around us in every direction. We were caught in the heart of nature's wildest show, and it was absolutely spectacular. I never experienced anything like that in my entire life. It was absolutely wild and memorable. By the time we finally got out of the sandstorm, we looked like we have stepped straight out of a post-apocalyptic movie. Our faces were completely covered in the black sand, and every time we tried to wipe it off, we just made it worse. So we decided to make a quick stop by a river on our way back. We all jumped out of the van and started splashing our faces with the cool, clear water to get rid of the sandy mess. It was absolutely funny. Alright, photography-wise, I managed to capture some nice shots from this session that I'm happy with. As you can imagine, photographing in this condition is anything but peaceful. Here is the actual Melfell volcano, framed right in the center. In the original shots, I felt the sky was overpowering the scene, so I decided to go with a panoramic crop to bring more focus to the volcano. Sure, a higher viewpoint would have helped to add more depth to the scene, but sometimes you just have to work with what you have got. This image captures an iconic location in conditions I've never seen before, making it unique in its own way. Then there is this other teleshots where I decided to shift my focus entirely on the sand dunes and play with layers for a more minimalistic interpretation. When you get wind blowing off the dunes, it just creates this incredible atmosphere to work with. The massive amounts of ash and sand in the air made everything hazy and cut the contrast way down. So the most favorable option was playing with layers and silhouettes, forgetting about capturing details. Here is another one pointing in a different direction and playing with these diagonal lines and layers. I also love the river on the left side of the frame. Probably I might have cropped a bit wider to give the river a bit more room. This shot captures the mood and the feeling of being on an entirely different planet. It's quite atmospheric, and I love the way the curved diagonals lead the eye and how the pale blue of the sky contrasts with the warm tones of the sand. By the way, if you enjoy my photography and are interested in photographing these amazing places with me, I'd love to have you join us for the 2025 Iceland workshop. You can register for the priority list to receive a notification when bookings open, giving you the chance to sign up before it's listed on the website. So check out the link in the description down below. Great. When it comes to camera technique, that insane amount of sand in the air is a nightmare for your camera's autofocus system. It's very similar to shooting a white wall with no areas of contrast, making it nearly impossible for the autofocus to lock on. So it's very common to get a ton of blurred shots and others where you could barely see anything but a flat wall of dust. So in this kind of situation, I usually start by trying autofocus on areas with good contrast and then review the shot to see if it's sharp. If it's not, I switch to manual mode and adjust the focus myself using the focus assist. This approach has always been the most effective way to ensure the image is always tack sharp. For example, I captured this dramatic panorama by stitching together multiple vertical shots. A huge cloud of blowing sand and ash. This was actually the last shot I took before leaving the Highlands. Unfortunately, we didn't make it to the actual volcano Mælifell. At some point, the sandstorm was getting so dangerous that we decided to head out before things got worse. When shooting panoramas, one of the key tips I always recommend is to capture multiple sequences. This is very important to give you more options in post-processing if something goes wrong, like missed focus or slight camera shake. For example, here is a merge of one of the sequences I shot. It looks fine at first glance, but if we zoom in to 100%, you can see something's off. Right here, one of the shots in the sequence is out of focus, which makes the whole sequence almost unusable. In this case, the autofocus failed at some point due to the lack of contrast in the scene. Keep in mind I was in the middle of a sandstorm, so it was a pretty stressful environment. So knowing your gear and how to handle it is absolutely crucial to getting the job done. Another important thing to consider, since the wind was brutal and I was shooting handheld with a telephoto lens, I had to make sure the shutter speed was fast enough to avoid any micro shake. In this case, 1/800 worked perfectly. So whenever possible, always remember to take multiple panel series to increase your chances of success. Now, from a gear standpoint, my two little buddies, the X-T4 and X-T30, survived the intense sand apocalypse. The Fujifilm X-T30 really impressed me, actually. Although it's not weather-sealed, it held up surprisingly well. The same goes for the lenses, the 10-24 and the 50-140. The big concern when shooting in this extreme condition is that if enough sand gets on the focus ring, it can become rough and gritty. Even worse, some lenses extend as they zoom. If that's the case with your equipment, well, it might be very risky. And the volcanic sand is very abrasive and sticky, and it's harder to clean than the regular sand. So it can be a nightmare. So if you find yourself shooting in a sandy environment, if possible, try to use lenses that don't extend the barrel when shooting in these conditions. Another crucial part to protect is the front lens elements. Many lenses come with special coatings, and strong winds can carry large amounts of sand that might damage these coatings and affect the lens's performance and image quality. So there are a couple of accessories I consider essential for these situations. The first is a lens hood. I know it might not be your favorite accessory, but when photographing in Iceland, it's very handy for shielding the front element from rain, mist or sand, like in this case. It adds an extra layer of protection and keeps water and dust off the lens. The second important accessory is a clear or UV filter. On that day I used the polarizer filter, not because I actually needed a polarizer, but only because it's always attached to my telephoto lens. I didn't want to dig into my backpack for a UV filter and risk getting sand on everything, so I just went with what I had handy. My current favorite filters are the Maven magnetic filters, which I've been using for almost a year now. They are absolutely fantastic in terms of quality, durability, innovation and reliability. This is the best system I've used so far. I'll include the link to their website in the description below, and I will talk more about them in an upcoming video. So the thing is, it's much easier and less expensive to replace a filter than to repair or replace a damaged lens. To be fair, the day before we also got caught in another sandstorm at a different location in the Highlands, but it wasn't as intense as the one at Mælifell. The location was amazing, but the light wasn't quite ideal. Still, we flew the drone for some aerial shots, and we were also treated to a solo performance by Xavier on his alboca, a traditional wind instrument from the Basque country. It was really cool. Alright, what can I really say about this experience? It was one of the most dramatic days I've ever had in the Highlands, and I got to spend it with an amazing group of photographers who embraced the challenge. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I got another exciting episode about my Iceland trip coming soon, so make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Ciao!